So, back for another VGC guide, and this time we are looking at Coalossal. Gmax Volcolith is gone. Gmax Coalossal is no more. I am very content with this. I have no issues whatsoever that is gone. And now it kind of sucks. It still can do the same thing it did previously, not quite Volcolith, but it can still get the weakness policy steam engine going if you get hit with a water type attack. The only issue is, because in Gmax form you'll take, 30% from your water attack, which is fine when you're in Dynamax, you still have 70% of your HP still. That's still going to be perfectly fine. But when you are not in Dynamax, as in don't just double your HP, you're taking, 60, 70% of your HP, and then you're just going to be so frail you'll be KO to anything. So that's generally not worth it, unless you just Terra type into only one of your types. You can choose Rock or Fire, it doesn't really matter, choose your favourite. Rock or Fire is perfectly fine. So long as you choose one of them, you're still weak to Surf. Like, obviously you want to be pairing this with something like Dragapult. That is the fastest Surfer. So you want to be pairing it with that, or Aquajet, or whatever. But you'll still be weak to water, and that's the important part, because then you'll still get the weakness policy, you'll still get your steam engine, and then you'll be able to hit reasonably hard, even without the Gmax Volcolith, or whatever. Rock Slide would be pretty good at just spamming at +6 speed, so that you can just spam Rock Slides. They're going to be pretty powerful, especially if you are Rock Terra type. Flare Blitz will do significant damage. Just be aware that you've already taken some damage. You'll get some even more recoil from Flare Blitz, but it will be a pretty strong hit. And if you don't want to go with that, and if you're just going with a different strategy, maybe something in the back is going to be doing the sweeping, you can always just Surf with your Dragapult and Explosion next to it because it's a ghost. And that would be entirely viable as well. That will KO a lot of things. +2 will do significant damage. You can't get away with being a normal type Terra, unfortunately, because then if you Terra type into the normal type to avoid the Surf damage, you don't get your weakness policy. So you kind of have to go Rock or Fire. It would have been nice if you could have been normal, because then that would have been a seriously strong explosion and would KO a lot of things, but probably actually a good thing that you can't be normal and still get the weakness policy. You can do Absorb Bulb, don't recommend it. Be Fire or Rock, just turn into that, not be as weak to water, and you can still do your thing. Like that would be fine. You could go with a special sets, because it doesn't get Meteor Beam anymore, you just use Power Gem instead, and Heat Wave, and then whatever coverage you would want. In the last lot, probably Earth Power. Solar Beam you could still use, but then you would only use Solar Beam because you want to Gmax Overgrowth instead, and you can also set up the Sun yourself because you could go for your max flares previously. Now I would probably just recommend going with Earth Power instead if you weren't special, but I would say that the physical is probably slightly better because of the option to explode next to your Dragapult. If you don't want to be going with that, then you can go with a slightly different set. I will just say as well, some people have been using Absorb Bulb on their Coalossal and turning into like Grass Terra type. Absolutely not worth. Do not do that. +1 off base 80 special attack is not worth. Like, just don't even bother. But this is a reasonable set as well. The fact that you are weak to ground, like 4 times, and you are weak to like Sacred Sword and all that, stop this from being actually an okay body press iron defense Pokemon back in Generation 8, because its typing was just terrible to be able to do that. That doesn't matter in this format because you can be whatever type you want. So you can turn into a grass type, you have Flash Fire, and now you are basically an amazing Lillicold counter. Because you're immune to the fire type attacks, you'll be immune to the sleep powders on resisting the leaf storms and all that. So this would be perfectly reasonable into something like Licol. It would be very good into Torkoal as well. And then you can still do the classic body press iron defense. And go with the leftovers and protect before we had access to things like Garganical to be able to just recover off those the hits instead. You, like back in Generation 8, you generally had to rely on just leftovers and protect to be able to recover your HP, but it's got high enough defenses. Like 120 base defense is pretty good, and like 110, 120 is good bulk with 90. So this will be able to take some hits for sure, and then whatever the coverage move is, it should be an offensive move. It should probably be a fire move. If you really want to hard counter Torkoal, then it should be Power Gem, but probably not. You can get with a fire move, and Fire Spin seems to make sense because it has utility outside of I'm just doing being able to do damage, because your base 80 special attack still with no investment because you want it into defenses, so you're not doing much damage at all. We saw Sand Tomb on leftovers Registeel with body press iron defense, so I see no reason why Fire Spin couldn't do exactly the same thing. So it's going to get that damage over time, it's going to get that trapping, so this could be reasonable as well. But I think that Coalossal still kind of sucks without its Gmax.